Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. No matter where in the heck of the world you are, it's V the Gorilla coming to you live on this edition of Rogue News. And we have with us the man of the hour. He needs no introduction. We are talking, of course, of EM Burlingame. And folks, you can find his work on his website. The links are in the description box, and also get his books. You can get them directly through his website as well as on Amazon as well. And folks, there's a lot to discuss here. EM is going to take us directly into the front lines of the information and truth war. And with that being said, EM, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure, my man. I know you were under the weather. A lot of people have been feeling kind of low energy here and there. Everybody I'm talking to, in fact, truthfully, everybody I'm talking to is either feeling kind of funky, feeling kind of weird, low energy, like afternoon naps like nobody would believe. Lots of stuff, man. Lots of stuff. Where do you want to where do you want to take us, brother?
I think we talk about in all of its many different forms, from cells to multicellular bodies to manorial economies, and then composite manorial economies that we now know as nation states. I think it's all related. And there's two fundamental, really there's three principles from physics, laws of thermodynamics, several pieces there, but really, energy, thermal, whatever distributions, and irreversibility. Right. The second one is the laws of conservation of energy. And the third, which relates to both, but really codifies it, is Maxwell's equations. Everything from the subatomic level up is all bound by these three sets of, principles, shall we say. Everything functions according to this. There is no point where we go from physics to chemistry and then thereby the rules of physics don't apply. And there's nowhere we go from chemistry to biology and no longer do the laws of physics apply. And then there's nowhere that we go from single cell to multicellular biology where both chemistry, the laws that govern chemistry and the laws that govern physics don't apply. Yeah. These three principles guide all. And what is at the core of all of it is thermodynamic equilibrium.
Mm-hmm. And life is not biochemical, it's bioelectrical. You hit the nail on the head with that one. And a lot of the latest research is showing that in a big way.
Well, and it starts from the chemistry itself. Look at the work of Dr. Nick Lane. Right? Life is bioelectric. And the medical work that we're doing now through the foundation, we're able to go right in and not only read, but adapt people's bioelectrical fields. And that alone changes the biochemistry.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what do? Cells are bioelectric field generators. They're self-powering, right? Self-organizing. They're on each cell in our body is vastly complex, but virtually every aspect of its functioning is bioelectric and not biochemical. The biochemical is there as the machine, shall we say, and the materials for the machine, but the machine itself, and I don't like to use these terms because they're not exactly right, but it's much like, this gross approximation of that we use today as computation. These are self-powered quantum computational resources. That's what a cell is.
Yeah.
So, and what's happening in the world right now is all of this massive conflict and change, and we all think it's all people and humans and this and that. And that's true because that's playing out at that level. But what's happening to the North Pole right now? What's happening to the South Atlantic abnormality? Now there's another one on the other side, right? Where are heavy charged particles streaming down to Earth where they haven't in quite some time? And how does that impact, microcellular life, multicellular life? And then I suspect, and I don't know because we don't have the tools to measure this exactly yet, but I suspect it's also having a substantial impact on the first synthetic artificial life that somehow got created here, and that's viruses.
Yeah.
Right? Viruses are micro machines. They're bioelectric micro machines that feed off of and fuel off of healthy eukaryotic, prokaryotic life and communities thereof. And we know there's a frequency specific microcurrent. We know with electrical fields we can impact. It's part of what made the Bell's palsy in my face go away so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Where it should have taken months, I was able to get rid of it in 3 or 4 days. Now I'm still dealing with the virus, but I was able to get rid of it because I was able to use specific bioelectric devices to impact that colony in my face, in the optic nerve.
This is something similar to Royal Runyon Wright. You remember that guy?
I don't.
Royal Wright. This guy was in the early.
You mean Royal? Did you say Royal Rife?
Rife. That's what it is. Was it Rife?
Yeah.
Or Rife?
Rife. It's R-I-F-E. I think it's spelled.
There you go. That's the guy. Royal Rife. And he was pioneering a lot of this electro medicinal research. We're using frequencies to treat viruses, ailments, cancer cells. He was able to rip apart cancer cells using a specific frequency. And then, of course, his research and his laboratories were raided like it was a crack house. And you never heard from him again, but yeah.
Well, the Russians, the Slavic peoples, the Russians are way ahead of this because of a quirk in biology studies under Trotsky-Lenin period, where Lysenski or whatever his name was, the top scientist, medical biological scientist, didn't believe in biology, didn't believe in microcellular biology as we do it in the West. And so they went straight to bioelectrics, and all of the best, most sophisticated bioelectric sensing devices and treatment modality devices all come out of the old Soviet bloc. And now they've been improved upon dramatically here. And, that some of it's straight electrical frequency, some of it's photonic, because like Dr. Jack Cruz and others are working on, there's a photonics going on inside the body. The body is communicating photonically and signaling photonically. So photons, also sound is another energetic, sound pressure waves, because where did multicellular life begin? Not so much as bodies, but as communities of multicellular life was in fluid systems. And what impacted those the most? Sound waves moving through the medium.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another energetic. And then cells communicate between one another, both chemically and electrically. Right. It's called quorum sensing. So, Dr. Nick Lane's as a chemist, has done extraordinary work of showing how chemistry just emerges naturally out of electromagnetic fields and electromagnetic field fluctuations. And then that the work that's been done in the RNA world, the pre-DNA world, where amino acids tend to shape and form naturally, again, because of bioelectrical processes, or not bioelectric, but electromagnetic processes. And then from there, you get lipids and other things, cell walls, and it just all shapes from electromagnetism. And there's the Thunderbolts project on YouTube, which goes into the electric universe. And while I'm not sure that they're completely on, they're certainly doing immense amount of work to demonstrate that the entire universe does not work the way we think it does. It's all electromagnetic, Birkeland currents, and that these cycles that we see, and it explains gravity and all kinds of things. But specific, particularly germane to this conversation, is that all life is, from its inception, even just raw chemistry, bioelectrical. And when I was studying chemistry, that was the first science I went into when I was a teenager, 40 plus years ago. But when I went into chemistry, what were you looking at? You were looking at the electrical charge and polarity and all these other things on molecules and atoms. And you were looking at eigenvalues of electron orbitals, and all of that stuff was right down at the level of chemistry, and really sophisticated chemistry was all electrical, right? Everything that was happening was some electrical process.
Mhm.
So,
Well, with that, I know before we got started, we were talking about people, you know, not feeling that well last few days. I know that there's been some activity. We in our area were able to see the aurora borealis a couple of nights ago. How do you think that's affecting us, EM, as far as electro and all that?
yeah, so I think two things. I think things, because nothing's happening at a single scale, right? So I think two things are going. One, I come from the north, and my people come from the north for thousands and thousands of years, and the aurora, and that, which is high charge, high density particles striking the Earth, or at least some miles above the Earth, it does impact it. It helps re-regulate your bioelectric signaling and processing back to something that's natural, because we're getting all of this electromagnetic radiation from everything it's electromagnetic radiation. So I mean, that's natural, but all the information coding on it is not, right? That's artificial, the coding. And at the bioelectric level, every cell in our body is trying to process that coded information on that electromagnetic field or field of fields. And so then you get something like aurora borealis, the northern lights, and you're getting heavy amounts of, that overwhelms all of the terrestrial based coding, signaling, etc. Same with solar flares, depending on where they strike and what's up with the Earth's electromagnetic field and all those types of things. The other piece, so that's at one scale, the base scale. I think at the second scale, though, like yesterday, I was just out. I started the day before. I was just out of it. The virus, whatever this, damn CMV virus, whatever it is, was winning. And I was just out of it. And so I suspect at another scale, the viral parasites and maybe probably even some of the bacterium are also energetically charged by this, right? So here's my suspicion. If you get out into the natural electromagnetic field, heavy electromagnetic field, your whole system is going to start to reset to healthy, which includes your immune system. And because the immune system does double tasking, the immune system both fights off invaders that are already in the system, but it's also constantly doing high level complex information processing to make sure that you don't have, attack vectors coming in, right? That anything that you're taking in energetically, chemically, whatever, through whatever means, skin, sinuses, mouth, whatever, passes the signaling of, yes, this can be allowed into the body. And if not, then we need to go to war with it. So I suspect the immune system gets a bump. And then what happens is all the pathogens, the parasites that are living off you, go to war. Right. And we can see this not just at the scale of the individuals. Like, I suspect virtually everybody I know has stopped drinking within the same period of time. It's not natural. There's nothing. Now, one thing is, I think they're putting, especially beer drinkers, I think I might or might not have done some work for Ambev at a certain period of time to secure one of their facilities years ago. But one, it may be that they're putting things, mRNA or other like things into particularly beer. It's harder to do in clear alcohols because it'll kill or break down, right? So the fruity drinks and the beers. But the other piece is that.
So you're telling me I need to stop drinking my cosmopolitans?
No, just make
and all
sure.
my fruity drinks that I enjoy.
Just don't get the pre-mixed ones.
I'm just kidding.
Well, you can drink whatever you want to. Just don't get the pre-mixed, out of the can kind of ones, because that's how they would do it.
So you think they're
gets
actually
his buttery nipple in a can?
No, I get my banana liqueurs.
Yeah,
I bet you do.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So you're thinking that they're actually somehow putting in some sort of mRNA into these? They're sneaking it in.
Yes, well, they've been openly saying about putting it in meats and foods and everything else. So I suspect. So if I was going to do some horrible things to my populace to keep them sick, keep them weak, so they can't see me, keep them fighting, in this emotional, psychological. If I'm going to keep them unhealthy in all these various ways, so I can parasitically make fast fortunes off of it, while also not having them available as a threat, I'm not going to do it as one whole thing in anything that you could actually piece of, some bright person will go, look what they're doing. No, I'm going to put a little piece of it in here and a little piece over there and a little piece in here and a little piece over there. But collectively, you're getting all of the component pieces in your body, much like how peptides work. How do peptides work? They're component pieces of a final molecule, final hormone usually, and your body assembles those pieces. Well, don't think for a second these parasites, these human parasites, scientifically, medically oriented, Mengele's descendants, and actually General Schubert, I think is his name. He was the Mengele's boss's boss who came straight into work for Air Force Medical in early 1950s. Don't think for a second that's not how they would think. You wouldn't put this into something so direct and obvious. You would put component pieces into different things, different vectors, so that people are taking these things into their body and their body just naturally assembles it.
Sure. Yeah. They're putting in these nanoparticles that have self-assembling capabilities.
Yeah, well, that's 25 years ago, I was looking at nano self-assembly. That was the work I was looking at.
Right. There was a memo that went out, or it was a leaked memo for Trader Joe's, and I believe that memo was saying that they were putting mRNA in their chicken or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's
and they're not supposed to. It's not approved by the FDA, but apparently they were doing it.
Yeah, well, and we're also getting insect proteins in cereals, all kinds of things, right? And the chitin protein from insects is something we are not designed to digest or process at all.
And not only that, there are parasites that are on these insect proteins that even through processing survives processing, and we're ingesting it. It's quite harmful for us.
Correct. So, the way. So give me 1 second. What we are finding is that I don't think COVID was anywhere near as successful as they wanted it to be, COVID or the vaccine. And the reason is that it's turning out, and this is more and more, look at Dr. Michael Levin's work at Tufts University and others, more and more it's turning out the DNA isn't really much of a big deal at all.
You mean the mRNA or the DNA?
DNA. That you can't really, the reason they had to go after mRNA is because mRNA does the transcriptions, et cetera, of genetic information and genetic coding. But it turns out that the human genome, or that the genome itself, is not the all-powerful organizing force of our cells and cellular communities and processes and functions. Oh, wow. Most all the DNA does is code for the blueprint for a protein, specific protein that we need, and elsewhere on the chain has additional instructions that articulates how to generate that protein under different conditions in the body. Well, that's 4.5 billion years of protein production and environmental changes at the pace of cell life, right? We have cells that are born and die every day. Think of the evolutionary timescales that those liver cells are working on. They're evolving rapidly, right? We have other cells that are 3 or 4 days. We have, the longest lived cells in the body are bone, and they're 10 to 14 years, right? So the point being is that the right bioelectric, now whether that's, it's usually a mix of acoustic, photonic, and energy, electromagnetism, some combination of those can pretty much overwhelm and outdo anything that they try to throw at you biochemically, unless it's, a certain heavy duty caustic chemical that does physical cell breaks down cells, et cetera, chemical burns, et cetera. We can't really fix that. But most of this stuff, so what we have to realize is that all life on Earth is still single-celled life. Even us sitting here having this conversation, I am Legion, right? I am a community of hundreds of trillions of cells, single cells.
Right, you are,
right?
including the gut biome, which is we're discovering
Gut
more.
biome, sinus
Powerful.
biome, skin biome, right? So all things that happen in the body are still happening at the single-celled level. And those at that level, humans might have only been around so long, but single cells have been around for 4.5 billion years.
Yeah.
How many iterations of fuckery have they survived? And how much coded information in the DNA and in epigenetic, the epigenetic expression of DNA is in there, and how much can that overcome, right? How much have cells seen? Our cells, the cells and the ancestors of our cells never lived in a pristine environment. They've been at war since for 4.5 billion years. They've been in the eternal war.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen it all, or most all of it.
So a question here, taking it back to the solar flares. Did I hear you right in that the solar flare kind of might reignite our immune system in a way?
Yeah. So this is one of the things that's being found pretty heavily. And I started on this work back that's what got me to NFI, National Foundation for Integrative Medicine, and the efforts I'm doing there, et cetera. What are cells doing? Each individual cell is maintaining a bioelectrical field on the cell wall, cell ports, and internally to the cell. And what is that electrical charge doing? It's doing vast amounts of information processing. And that's driving the boundary conditions inside the cell that then drive cellular processes, chemical processes, both in input and input, utilization, and waste removal. And it's doing that in accordance with what its purpose, what type of cell it is and what it's supposed to be doing. Well, all of that is directed and guided by electromagnetism. All of it, right from the beginning. And by the way, this starts at the inception. Inception with sperm and egg fusing is a quantum entanglement event. And it what flashes a single atom of zinc, and that generates a visible photon of light. That's been proven many, many times. So the moment of inception is the moment this bioelectric field flashes into existence. And it's so powerful that it can convert one atom of zinc into a photon of light that it throws off. The rest of it is, that's maintained in the bioelectric field. And then every cell replicates from that single bioelectric field. Okay. Well, we're enmeshed in, the universal electromagnetic field as heavily filtered by the Earth's EMF and the solar system's EMF. But we're, from the very beginning of time, deeply embedded at the cellular level in electromagnetic fields. So anytime you get a major, and anybody can do this, like I don't do well around high tension power lines. I don't deal well around transformer stations. I didn't do well in certain data centers when I was building data centers because their electromagnetic stuff was unshielded. It's much better now, right? Mm-hmm. Because we realized we were having lots of problems computationally because of the EMF field in the data center. So we shield most everything. But point being is that when you have something like the aurora, what is the aurora really, especially this far south in the latitudes? That is a massive, massive amount of electromagnetism in the form of highly charged, high dense photons. And they're getting down to the point where we, in the Earth's electromagnetic field where we can see them. Well, that blanketed the whole northern hemisphere, right? The whole northern hemisphere was struck by that.
Right.
So what would that, I suspect, because we're able to do it on these micro scales now with frequency specific microcurrent and some other things, equoscope and, et cetera, and some photonics and some acoustics. I suspect that, the Earth's and the solar system's electromagnetic field is that carrier wave reset signal, because what we're finding with cells is that they get so much noise internally that the cell is not maintaining the exact electromagnetic frequencies that it needs to maintain to truly function. And we can go in and impact those, and it's all kinds of things happen. Like, we can get guys out of pain in 2 days, and they'll never have to take painkillers again. We can get guys, everything that the guys I know doing traumatic brain injury stuff, including psilocybin, et cetera, it's all momentary, temporary palliatives, because it doesn't reset the electromagnetic field. I can go in with TMS or electroscope or whatever in a couple of days, totally reset all the guys, hundreds of trillions of cells, their electromagnetic field, and then all these cascades of solutions happen. The body fixes itself. Why? Because what you did by introducing these very specific frequency pairs is you reminded the cell to what frequencies they're supposed to be tuning, and you give them the free energy at that. This is Carl Friston's work, not directly this way, but it touches on this, or another application of his free energy principle. But you give the cells the energy in the electromagnetic pairs, and they do come because cells are actually alternating current. Tesla was on to some more than he wasn't just a kook. Right. Give me a second. When you give the cells the energy that they should be producing in the frequency pairs, it does two things. One reminds the cell these are the ranges you're supposed to be tuning to, not this noisy ranges. It gives the cells free energy, in those frequency pairs. Well, when a cell is energy neutral in terms of it's producing what it needs to produce, what does it do? It immediately goes into repair mode. And and the first part of repair mode is toxin removal.
Yeah.
Right? So, which then with the toxin removal, what does that do? It allows the boundary conditions inside the cell to reset back to healthy. And then our cells are unreal, sophisticated and complex and capable. Unreal. Right? But it's all driven by electromagnetism right from the moment of conception till the day we die.
Incredible. Which one? I mean, just to touch base on really quickly. I mean, with all the advancements we've made on bioelectrical research and what we're discovering at an atomic level and even at a subatomic level, are we at the point where we can dare say that when our biological life stops here, that there's more to it, that there's more to us than just flesh and blood,
I mean, it's quite possible. So I started down those pathways when I was very young, but then that got me into sciences and mathematics and technology, because I was trying to, because for me personally, this is just me personally, right? I could speculate all I want on those things, but I live in this life now in this form and fashion, and I'm trying to optimize that.
Yes.
I'm not so worried anymore. I mean, I spent decades plus studying all the religions and philosophies, and I lived with hippies and the Esalen people and all that when I was a kid. For me, quite possibly, I mean, electromagnetically, physics-wise, it's quite possible, right? Again, back to laws of conservation of energy. But for right now, I am, as a human being and as a community of hundreds of trillions of cells, I have a certain thermodynamic balance that I have to maintain that's unreal complex.
Yeah.
Unreal complex. And so I'm trying to, and realizing that thermodynamic equilibrium is never constant and is always changing and adapting, and it's irreversible. Now we can we can gain back some time and years of life by cleaning ourselves up at the cellular level, but we don't go back, right? So for me, it's nice sometimes. I don't really even do it anymore, but to think about these higher things. But right now, I got me, and I got kid, and I got probably grandkid here not too far from now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to thermodynamically optimize for the life we're living, not for the next life, if there is one.
Mm-hmm. EM, we've had you and I've had some conversations both on shows and off shows, and this is the second time I've heard you mention echelon. And the last time you talked about it, you're just kind of, it didn't seem like the best experience. But what's that about? Like, what is? Are they not into? What is it, a spirituality thing, or is it more like what you're talking about with science?
Oh, I mean, people could talk it better than I can, right? But this was the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, San Francisco and Bay Area. And my experience of it was a bunch of upper middle class, lower upper class kids getting together, trying to figure out if there was some, mystical, magical power out there that they could change their station in life. Mm-hmm. And most of them were nasty little shits. Oh, they had
are they doing like
they were nice and they were pleasant and they were all the things your face, but echelon should have been called estrogen.
It sounds to me like a mystical type thing.
Well, but I mean, there was science and all. I mean, they were trying. I won't take away from that. But the thing I've known, having come through these, family and life and period of time and history in a certain place and location, is that most of these attempts at, articulating the higher existence of being and how to get there, most of it turns out to be nonsense. You always wind up with resentfuls who get in there pretty heavily because those people are easy to prey on, parasitically live on, and then you wind up with a whole lot of just nonsense. Now, some of what comes out of there, though, is pretty solid. And some of those people went on to be pretty damn good technologists. And some went on to be pretty good scientists and, still with a spiritual, connected kind of thing. So it serves its purpose. And echelon was just one. That was just San Francisco at the time and broader. But there's a lot of them now. And now the same group, same mindset as this quantum AI religious experience folks, which you'll see the YouTube videos. Somebody's putting a lot of money into pushing this around that, AI and quantum computing have been talking to interdimensional beings. Somebody's putting a lot of money into putting that concept and idea out there, to spawn this new, tech lord dominated religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's like, it sounds to me like some kind of a new age, like you said, like a tech religion or something.
Yeah, I wrote about this. I wrote a piece on it, right? So the Abrahamic religions are done. They're done. They've run their course. That's why they're fighting it all out right now. It's for the last vestiges. And it's why the Catholic Church and Orthodox Church are talking. And and Nietzsche talked about this, Dostoevsky 200 years ago or 100 and some odd years ago, right? Mm-hmm. There'll be a resurgence of the Abrahamics, which is what we're seeing, and then that too will fail. Why? Because like Joseph Campbell talked about in The Power Myth and in his other writings just before he died in the 80s, we are moving as a species to a new myth system. Mm-hmm. A far more... I mean, he didn't know exactly what it was, but it's a myth system that removes the concept and ideas of these great fighting universal forces that are outside of us that we're all just subject to, and actually puts human beings as the responsible party, sole responsible party in their own life. And right now, there's two religious ideological concept ideas. One is the computationalism, which is what this religion is. And the other one's financialism. And financialism is what replaced Christianity, the Abrahamic belief systems in Europe and the English-speaking peoples in the 1600s. And now we're running up against the, Now there's something maybe, and there's an overlap between computationalism and financialism, and that's your cryptos and your quantum finance and all this other thermodynamically non-possible nonsense, right? So give me 1 second. The computationalism seems to be the Protestant movement of financialism, where it's breaking out into its own belief system, still deeply tied to financialism. Just as we saw, in the 1200s with Martin Luther or Calvin or whoever it was.
Does it have but you said it's thermodynamically not possible.
It's thermodynamically not possible, yes, because there is nothing in the universe that we know of that is more computationally rich and thermodynamically balanced than a single cell. Nothing. And as you go up through communities of cells, you decrease in thermodynamic balance. You decrease in pure raw computational capabilities.
Yeah.
Because the system, as a dissipative structure, itself introduces noise.
Right?
That
makes sense, right?
And that's what aging is. What aging is just this noise, that bioelectrical noise that gets into the system and just, is irreversible. You can't reset to some state, etc. And so that's the problem that we have, is that if we put all of the world's computational resources together, somehow paralleled it, cell phones, computers, supercomputers, all of it, none of it would be as computationally combined, would be as computationally rich as a single cell. Right.
Comment in the chat here, something about Nietzsche being dead. My understanding is that Nietzsche doesn't think God is dead. Nietzsche, I believe what he believed, and I have to reread all this because it's been many years. Humans stopped believing in God, therefore God was dead in the human mind. So
that's exactly what he said. He said, That's exactly right. God is dead and we killed him.
Yeah, right. It's not a lot of people who are of the heavily like Abrahamic or really any other religious bent like to say, oh, Nietzsche thinks God is dead. I was like, go read his book.
Yeah, no, he didn't say that. What he said
didn't say that, yeah.
No,
there's a lot of people who just knee-jerk reflex without reading things.
Well, read Greek, Greek philosophy. You're an Italian fellow from that region, right? A Scandinavian mythology is the same as Greek mythology. Ancient Greek mythology comes from the same root out of the Northern Caucasus, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Give me 1 second. If you read Greek mythology and some others, actually, the conversations there, that the gods lose their power when man stops believing in the god.
I'll be right back, guys. I have a delivery.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So it's not that the gods are gone. Now, Clash of the Titans or Wrath of the Titans, the newer ones, not the 1970s, 1980s ones.
I like the 80s one, or it's 1970s.
Oh, that was pretty good. Yeah, it's late 70s. That was a good one.
That owl and
yeah. But Wrath of the Titans, I think, is the second movie.
I've seen that one too. I believe they start with the actual Titans and Kronos and
well, hold on 1 second. Whatever. The second one in the series, the modern one, that's what's happening. The gods are losing their powers because man is stopping believing in them. And I wonder, actually, sometimes, maybe just something to kind of what V was thinking. I wonder sometimes if that isn't true, because as bioelectric life, that means everything is quantum entangled, is entangled fields, is these, entangled electromagnetic fields. And you get enough of those electromagnetic fields that believe in something and operate as if that thing is real, it's going to have, at the bioelectric level, at the electromagnetic level, and at the quantum level, it's going to have reality. It's going to have substance.
Well, and in the spirit of like debate, now I'm not a religious person. I was raised Catholic, and I went through all that stuff, and my parents taught Sunday school. I know the Christian religion pretty well, and I also did outside of Catholicism, like youth groups, Christian. I know the deal. I wouldn't call myself an expert in anything like that, but I'm definitely familiar, and I'm a skeptic. I have a hard time believing things that I read from 2 days ago, much less things that were written 2,000 years ago. For me, it's a logic
Well,
problem.
we were told they were written 2,000 years ago.
Well, yeah, this is my point, right? Like,
Yeah.
if somebody showed me a book that was written 4 years ago, first of all, is anything in that book true? Can you prove it? Second of all, was it written 4 years ago? It's just one of those things where I just have a hard time. I'm more of a scientist type, and if that means that I don't get to go to heaven, then so be it. So, I know it sounds terrible, but it is what it is. So, questioning that, like, if you think it's possible that people believing in, let's just say, the Christian God and Jesus and all of that, do you think it's possible that enough people believing in that would make that be alive and true?
Yes. Not as it creates some being out of the side of his mother, etc. No, not necessarily, but in a way that's kind of a metaphorical statement, right? But what it would do is it would create a field. Again, everything is still physics. Everything is still physics. And so that amount of computational resources at the cellular level up in enough massive, because again, in the legion communities that are a human being, and then a collection of human beings, that's a vast amount of thermodynamic computational resources that are all being put into the same concepts and ideas that is going to have an imprint in physics and in chemistry, but chemistry is dictated by the laws of physics as impacted by the bioelectrical fields.
I know, V, you're back, and so this is actually I don't know. Did you hear the question that I asked, V?
No. I just got back.
So I'll shorten it, because V, this is really a conversation where you belong. I'm a skeptic with religion, V. That's this conversation I've had. I'm not going to say that it never happened or it's false. I'm not going to say it's true either. I'm just somebody who needs proof. I'm not really good with faith. I'm a trader. That's what I do. So,
trader, not traitor.
TRADER. I trade, right? So I do what I do. The screen gives me information.
Trader, get him
right.
Yeah, like
you got to be careful.
I'm a trader. No, everything for me is based on information and probabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a gut feeling when it comes to art, but that's another story. So when it comes to religion, what we were talking about was that the possibility, even from like physics or electromagnetic field or a quantum field standpoint, and EM, I'd rather have you explain this, but can you explain, EM, what you were saying? And the audience could probably use it again too. If enough people believe in, say, Christ or God, if enough people truly believe in that, can that make Christ and God true and real?
At a physics level, it's going to have an impact on the overall electromagnetic fields. It's going to drive biochemical processes. It's going to drive vast amounts of computation. All of that is physics. And this gets back to Bell's inequalities, right? Professor John Bell and his inequalities that demonstrated, whether it's quantum physics or not, there is this unified field. And so so what is life? Life is computation. Now, I don't mean this in the way that computers do it, et cetera. It's completely different, but what is it doing? It is, what is the universe itself doing? It's computing, it's processing. Now, is that computation like computers? No, but it is information flows. It is information balancing. It is thermodynamics at the higher scales. And so if enough biophysical, bioelectrical, biochemical, computational resources are believing in a thing at the physics, at the unified field level, there's going to be substance to that.
Okay, so, and this also kind of lends itself, and V, interject at any time, V.
Well, here's the thing, man. I think when you look at, it's pretty interesting. Recently, as of late, I've been looking into a lot of the, whatever was left over, the bits and pieces that we were able to recover from the Library of Alexandria, as well as the pre-Christian Gnostics, the post-Christian Gnostics, and so on and so forth. And what EM talked about is pretty interesting, because one of the things that they espouse is that if enough people believe something, that does affect an energetic level. This is why it's pretty interesting. They did a study, right, where they had a huge amount of people in a concert in a crowd, and during that time, I think something was subliminally put out into the crowd via the music, where everybody started visualizing and seeing the same apparitions that manifest itself within the concert itself. Whereas third-party observers that were recording the entire event via videotape, they recorded absolutely no sort of apparitional appearance of anything of any sort. But then you take those people that have seen it, all they're all standing in different positions in different places throughout the concert, and these people were then interviewed afterwards. They all came to the same conclusion. They all saw the same apparition. They described it the same way, so on and so forth. It shows you that, the power of mass psychosis, number one.
There you go. Yeah.
But it
mass
formation psychosis, number
Yeah.
one. But it also, at a spiritual level, I get, we are affecting things. If we are all frequency, we are all energy. And what is energy? It's matter slowed down that our five senses can interpret it. That's all it is, right? And that's what matter is. Matter is energy slowed down that our five senses can interpret it. So if we
it's not slowed down, it's a density of information. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So if we are, if our, a subatomic makeup is this frequencies, these energies, it's things
fields.
that are fields. Yes,
they're electromagnetic fields.
Yes, yeah. And these things are occurring on such a level. It's it's like having, I guess, antennas all tuned to the same frequency, right? If you tune a whole bunch of antennas to the same frequency, it's going to manifest something. It's going to affect something. So I think if humanity, begins to, I guess, focus their energies, for lack of a better word, for being colloquial, right? If we were to focus our energies, it can affect to a great, to some regard or to whatever regard, what is manifesting in our world real time. And I think I think this is the reason why globalist controllers and all these factions that are at war are so obsessed over what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and they want to keep us divided.
It's fifth generation. This is what fifth generation warfare is how do you get the cells in human beings to compute what you need? How do you monetize the computation of human cells around the constructs and the, aberrations that you generate and create? And you have, and then you got to fragment and fracture people because they're not going to, you need vast numbers of things to monetize.
Yeah.
So you don't want them all believing the same thing.
Right.
Exactly. You want them believing all kinds of things. And you want to have the liver at war with the heart and the heart at war with the brain, the enteric brain and the cranial brain.
And sorry to interrupt, if you get enough people to believe in enough different things, does that degrade the thermodynamics?
What it does is, okay, so great. So the bioelectric fields in your body are organized by different cell types. And those communities, this is what cancer is. Cancer is a cell that gets out of signaling with the other cells around it. And so then what does it immediately do? It goes into replication mode because cells know that they have to maintain not only a certain electromagnetic field, but their density has to be, the field density has to be a certain level, and you need a certain number of cells for that to be that way. And so you're very much right. What fifth generation warfare is, and I really didn't quite see it until just last week as I'm writing on As Rome Burns, fifth generation warfare is war waging out within our cells, within the bioelectric fields of our cells. And very much what you're saying is, how do the different industrial forces that monetize this stuff live off of different subsets of cells in our body? And the computational resources manifesting, if you want to call it, et cetera, but of those cells, and then the conflicts between those cells and other cells, because our body is hundreds of trillions of different cells. The biome alone is 50, 60,000 species.
Right.
All the bacteria. And
so give me 1 second. The only counter, and this I wrote this in as Rome Burns, the vow to life, right? The problem that we have as human beings is that we are linguistic monkeys, and linguistics, words, are just symbols, and they can be contorted and twisted and mixed in any way possible, any imaginable number of combinations. Shakespeare proved that, and others, right? So for me, the only way in which to counter this war is that I vow to one thing and one thing only, and it's not a god, it's life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got a fan in the audience who's asking a lot of questions, and apparently, I don't know if you even want to field them.
Sure.
But he is asking, why do we want young men to oppose words themselves? And the reason obviously you're going there, and it's at the end of your book on modern knights. So he wants you to, or she wants you to expand on that.
Because words are what are used to do this very thing. Words are what are used, particularly with young men who have physical capacities and are needing to prove themselves in the world of man. Words are, and I don't mean this as a diminutive, but words are estrogenic. Linguistics is estrogenic. Males need to do things, build things, repair things, fight for things. Right? Mm-hmm. Estrogens need to build something, but estrogens need to build life. Estrogens need to, so there's a reason women are the chaos they are. It's because building life is a chaotic process. It's a chaotic bioelectric process that's just, when you really look at it that way, women are the way women are because of this extraordinary manufacturing they have to do in their own body, and then within the community to maintain all these complex relationships, et cetera, to keep all that biocomputational stuff going for generations to come. Men are not that way. We don't do that kind of manufacturing. Men are there to protect that, build things around it, manage it, right? We're there. That's, we're the unstoppable, we're the immovable object to women's, to estrogen's unstoppable force.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
the balance. That's
the balance. So what does her unstoppable force anchor itself to? The unmovable object, right? What has to be man? Well, if you want to wage 5th generation warfare inside everybody's cells, and you want to be in total and absolute control so you can monetize absolutely everything, which is total and absolute slavery, you have to take men off the table. Because because all of this is artificial and it can actually be turned off. Smash the electrical centers. It's all done. Everything that's being done, every single bit of the war being waged against us is dependent upon electricity at scale and widely distributed. You want to end this 5th generation warfare? If you're not capable, if you're not in support of helping young men build themselves to break free of this war so they can focus on the fights they really do have to focus on and build, at some point, young men are going to smash the data centers, and the males are going to smash this electrical machine, this artificial machine that totally and absolutely dominates us. The only way in which you take men off the table, if you can't just kill them and wipe them out, and this is what the intent and effort was, but now they realize, holy shit, you need young men. Because your technology, how many young Ukrainian men have died in this war?
1.8 million that we know of.
Yeah.
And it's at 10 to 1 on the Russian side. So they haven't lost inconsequential either. It's 150, 170,000 men killed.
Yep.
This isn't even the wounded. Wounded's 4 or 5 times that amount.
Yep.
Right. So the point being is that we have learned that our technology can't replace young men. And we've got all these rape gangs and everything going on because you can't replace your young men with foreign young men.
No.
And so now they're in this problem. They need men, but they need control. The problem is you can't have both. You cannot have strong, capable men who will stand and fight on your lands for you and your things. You cannot have that if you have them under total control. It doesn't work. Because nobody who's under total control can fight. And they don't want to. Okay, well, how do they do control? words. It's all words. Yes, they can do the stuff to make you unhealthy, and yes, they can give you the porn, and yes, they can do these other things, but all that can get turned off like that. Right?
Mhm.
How do
Yeah.
they get young men? They get young men through words. And I know this myself. I was raised with white guilt and I was raised with man guilt every minute of the freaking day.
Mhm.
It took decades to break free of both of those.
Yeah, that's why they had courses in some California elementary school why boys are bad, and they were making the boys sit in the middle of the gym floor while the girls were in the bleachers saying how bad the boys were. Yeah.
See, here's the thing, V. Those courses were recent, right?
Yeah, they were in the last 5 years.
Because here's the thing.
This goes back to when I was. Yeah.
I got to comment on this because EM, you're not my age. I'm a little younger than you, and everybody, I'm in my mid 40s, so it was insidious because we never had those classes.
No,
and I had those thoughts.
Oh, I was told every day. I was told by teachers.
I never got told white people are bad. No. I never had any of that.
But it was in everything. It was in everything already.
It's insidious.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
well,
my
now,
point.
now the problem is they need men, and they realize, holy shit, we need men, and we have to have our men because you can't import foreign men. You have to have your own men, but how do we control them? Well, I'm sorry, you can't have both. What'll happen is healthy young men, the good ones, the ones that break free of the lies, the mass formation of words, right? To go back to what you were saying, V, and I'm watching this. I'm making these decisions myself right now. Do we stand and fight, or do we pull back and preserve what can be preserved and let all this fifth generation bullshit, all this word stuff die, burn itself out, knowing exactly what that's going to do, what that means. And it ain't good.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So
it will burn itself out.
Yeah. Back to the actual title, the thermodynamics issue.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. This is all about thermodynamics.
Yes, so go for it. If you bring us back around, so we're at the end of the show.
Okay, so here's what the male does. Males are the ones. So because of the biological imperative to birth and create life, not create life, by the way, the sperm does that. Sperm is the one that sparks the zinc and all of that. But to create and to build that life, right, and then shepherd it through the first years, and then actually shepherd the next generations, because that's what women are supposed to be doing. That's what they're wired for, is not just one generation of genes, but then be transitioning from child rearing to, from childbearing to child rearing until their late life, right? To make sure that thermodynamic dissipative structures in the form of human beings and continues for several generations, theirs, right? But what are males doing? Males are the ones who manage that the males are the ones who are managing and building and tearing down and destructing the dissipative structures that make all of that possible, that preserve all of it, that make it all possible. We were wired this way. Women are wired to be thermodynamically unbalanced because that's what's required to physically build life. And to shepherd that across generations. Men are designed and oriented to manage, to seek thermal equilibrium, despite that thermal disequilibrium pushing of women. Yeah. Right. And it's the balance between the two that allows this human civilized, humanity, family, community, humanity, etc., to go forward in, to deal with all the thermodynamic disequilibrium stuff that's going on always, such that we can still be.
Hey guys, I gotta hop off real quick.
Yeah.
All right, V.
You guys keep going. I gotta hop off.
Okay.
See you, bud.
So, where are we right now? Where we are right now is we are thermodynamically, we are way beyond what can be sustained thermodynamically, energetically. Right? Because we put vast amounts of money and time and energy and effort into the monetization of artificial things. And at all of that, at the immense cost of human health, human flourishing, the economy, base economy, the fundamental economy, the land, right? Land sustains everything. And so we are way beyond thermodynamically sustainable.
So sorry about that. I got a little noise in the background. Give me just a moment.
Yep.
There are some questions in the chat for you, EM, so you could take that moment to answer those.
I don't think I can see those.
Okay, you should have access to the chat on the right-hand side. But if not, just give me a moment.
Okay. Boring chores. Yeah. Do the boring stuff. Get it out of the way.
Apologies, everybody. So yeah, I think there might be. I don't know if we want to address those things.
Well, the one that doing the boring chores, that was awesome. But somebody mentioned something about fixing education. That's the wrong focus. We're told that that's the end all be all, but that's the control mechanism. Education historically until after World War II was predominantly done by the family. And that needs to continue. And every single one of the well-off, they're not even rich, but well-off friends that I have all done that. They all homeschool. Now, some of them come together with 4 or 5 other families. And, and I have another friend, Joe Higgins, from a company called Ethos Pathos, I think, but he develops educational curriculums for K through 12. And they're very solid, very well done. Joe Higgins, he's on Twitter, and then I think it's Ethos Pathos. I have some of his stuff around here, but that's what he does. And he's got some charter schools, etc. But he designs these educational curriculum for families. But the education, it's not, so yes, we need to fix education, but that's because we need to go back to homeschooling.
Well, yeah, I mean, from a logical standpoint, if you really want to create a mass formation psychosis, the schools are perfect for it. And hence
that's why they were set up. Yeah.
Yeah. Hence the white guilt that, guilt for things that you and I never did.
Well, no, absolutely. And most of my ancestors didn't either. What the education system is conditioning your cells at every level to compute 5th generation warfare, to make you susceptible to all of these threat and attack vectors, right? It's to get you into a permanent state of FOMO across all kinds of different domains, so that then they can monetize every minute of every moment of the cellular processing of your life. And because that's what that is. What are you doing when you're chasing appetites? You're selling parts of your life because you got to pay for that. And what is the work that you do? Well, that's a portion of your life you're not going to ever get back. It's gone.
Well, I think that lends itself to your thermodynamism, because there's a new thing in the information war, and I forget who's. I think it's. Gosh, man, I wish I remember. You hear and read so many things, you forget who said them. The old model was you just, you put news out there. The news cycle is very slow. It's newspapers. It's the 6 o'clock news, right? Now we have a 24-hour all the time news cycle, instantly everything. We have it right now. And, you don't have to be a newscaster to do the news. Anybody can talk anywhere. So instead of trying to stop the information from coming out, which is basically impossible, is they flood the area with as much information and disinformation and even information that, like, you're going to go read a news article and then all of a sudden, some bombshell is dancing and you're just like, oh, I'm going to look at that. And then,
the vast
or it could
majority
be
of
that they're
things,
putting out a similar news article where the first half of it you agree with, and then they twist it into something else. And there's just, and that seems that you're dissipating your energies.
Yeah, well, you're spending your energies on things that don't create anything for you. 90+% of the information space is crap that doesn't matter to us at all. Not really. Like, why there's a reason they have us paying attention to all these higher level abstractions, because we don't have the energy or neurological or social resources available to pay attention to the local level, which is where everything that impacts our life happens. Period.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right. So 98% of what's put out, everything you said is absolutely true, but 98% of anything, even the good stuff, isn't necessary because it doesn't impact our life. And what are they doing? They're always distracting us away from the local, because the local is where everything happens that impacts our life.
So spending energy on local issues might be more effective.
It's much more thermodynamically balanced, because the things that impact your life that then cost you energetically all happen locally. And even things that happen at the high level that might impact you, the only way to counter them is locally. See, the American system wasn't set up like Rome. The American system was set up like the old English manorial system. The states were ducal ducal princedoms, and the counties were a count, and the local communities, etc., were down to baronies. It was all set up with that system, that English manorial system, where each of those, from the states, the ducal estates, then managed and controlled counties and otherwise, and they were all meant to be localized and to have, seek equilibrium at the local level, and then that aggregates up. But that's not where we've been. We've been, since the 1800s, we've been told that we're a Roman system. Well, what is that? That's centralized. That's centralized and top-down control. But that's not how the American system, the Constitution of the states, et cetera, was set up. We were set up actually by dukes and a king. And our system, constitutionalized both at the federal level and states' constitutions, is a manorial system. And that means that these independent things, these independent states, counties, et cetera, need to be locally thermodynamically neutral as best they can.
Well, yeah, that was the whole idea, was the decentralization of power, and over time and through the banking system, City of London and whoever else, put together the Federal Reserve, your European families, your, Israeli, whoever, when that all got put together.
Israel's a construct of them too, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, and to be rid of a problem must, if you only can attack the constructs, what else are you going to do? But either way, that system centralized everything because everything is economic. So it centralized all of the financial decision making, the money creation, and the ability to pay everybody off, basically.
It's an extraction system.
Yeah.
It's a higher order, unaccountable extraction system. That's really what it is. And you can look at it as like a pathogen, but you can also look at it like an addiction, where the addiction is being fed by feeding certain molecules or behaviors into the body that then the cells of the body have to process and compute and manage, etc. It's the same concept and idea. The reality is that everything happens first inside the individual, and then in their family or their home unit, and then it happens in the community around them, their neighborhood and the community. Everything happens local. All things happen local. It's the same in the body. Whatever is happening in my body is happening local to those cells.
It's interesting because if you think about it, one of the things that will make people, especially men, give up is the inability to affect things. And really, sure, we could get on here and talk to the internet and be keyboard warriors and do shows, but are we really changing anything at a national level? And I'd say maybe, but I'd say we have a much higher capability to change things at a local level, right?
But at the local level was so here's the thing: other people need to realize. Even national level, all national level power doesn't come from magic thing above it. It's no. All national level power comes from local power aggregated. So
yeah,
even today. Right. Even today. So what's happening right now is some of the power, the princes and their power structures are stepping forward and trying to give us a chance to, they're taking on the high level aggregated things, and they're trying to give us a chance to take on the local level things. We're not. We keep looking at the higher level things. Why? Because our local level parasites are throwing up all this noise about national level stuff so that we don't pay attention to what they're actually doing in our own communities.
Who would you say the princes are?
It's hard. Everybody wants to give me a name. I want a name. That's not how the world works. It's not. It's certain families. It's certain institutions. It's Trump's one. He's a minor prince. Koch's, Elon, Peter Thiel, right? There's others, a whole bunch of names I don't know. There's a whole lot of minor, dukes and counts and barons and all that other equivalents at the states level that I have no idea about.
Well, I'll be a devil's advocate because I'm just going to say what the audience is thinking. Why would we trust Elon when he wants to put chips in our brains?
He doesn't want to put chips in your brain.
I'm just giving you a question that the audience is going to ask EM.
Well, they can ask it all they want. They're not paying attention. Elon's focused on people that have quadriplegic, they have specific neurological problems. He's not trying to chip everybody. That's Bill Gates.
Yeah, right? That's just what we're doing.
Well, that's okay, but that's the noise. That's the noise, right? People throw noise out there, and then everybody runs around and goes, well, this person said this. It's like, no, they didn't. If you actually go back and look at what they're saying, no, that is not what they said.
Yeah,
that got fed in at this point, at this time, by these people for this reason. Why? Because this whole psyop, this liberal democracy psyop that's been going on heavily for about 600 years, has been solely focused on one thing, and that is keeping the people and the princes apart. Because when the princes and the people are together, this parasitism can't work. And this goes all the way back to Rome. And through Rome, from Rome to Venice, from Venice to Amsterdam, from Amsterdam, City of London to Wall Street. It's all this unbroken chain. It's been this, why were the Romans all about no kings? Well, because the last time this type of parasitism got reset, it was by a king. It said no more and came in and excused all of the debts. Michael Hudson does great work on this, by the way. Right?
Yeah, I think so far at least, the societies I've read about, when the debts are forgiven or excused and when money lending is no longer allowed, their economies tend to do a lot better.
Yeah, well, the problem that we have is that we are all worshiping a religion and we don't know it. It's called financialism. I've written several pieces on it. They're on Substack and Twitter, right? We are all bound up in a religion and we are worshiping it and we don't even know. We're lay people or we're not lay people, right? We got people like Tom Luongo and others who's a friend and I respect the hell out of him, and Alex Craner and others. And they, get into the deep guts of financialism. They're priests. They're high priest in a religion and they don't even know it.
Well, I would argue that you have to know the disease to develop the cure, right?
Well, you have to, this is more dangerous or more insidious because it is a belief system. It's a very rich ideological belief system that laid down almost point by point onto Christianity. And then over, starting in 1100, starting in 1054, started to steadily displace Christianity such that by 1600, after 300 years of religious warfare, Christianity was pretty much replaced completely. At least, for anybody who was anybody of substance, maybe not completely for the masses, but the masses were still participating in financialism. They just didn't know it. They knew it as capitalism. They knew it as, industrial revolution, but it's still all financialism. And now it's coming undone because it can't be sustained thermodynamically anymore. It's way beyond that. And so what's moved in to replace it steadily over the last 30, 40 years? Computationalism.
This actually brings us to another question. There was something you tweeted about, according to somebody in the chat here, a commons currency.
Yeah.
So and I missed that tweet because I'm on Twitter jail, so I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on X right now. So is that an answer to our problem, or what's that about?
And the problem's way more complex than that. Currencies don't matter; they're made up. But what is a currency? Currency is a means and method for individuals to share things that can't be valued. That's not true. Barter system is a very, very solid system, goes back a very long ways, and it's very rich and sophisticated. If you have a currency that, the problem that you have with currency, and Adam Smith talked this, and again, people have got to read Wealth of Nations after reading Theory of Moral Sentiments, because Adam Smith was a philosopher. He wasn't an economist. And he wrote The Wealth of Nations as the response to the questions that came up on how do we morally engage with one another, and how are we harmed, and all of that. But the problem with a local currency, and this is where the guilds and the lords and everybody else functioned here best, is how do you equate? You need a market mechanism, a local market mechanism that allows for the equation of an hour's worth of auto body repair of certain types with an hour's worth of labor, or 10 minutes worth of labor in some form of animal husbandry. And that's just a couple examples, or midwifery, or, all these things. And so how do you, what determines the comparative value of things? Well, that's only a market. And how does that work? Well, the only real way there is there's some unit of measure that, the market uses and the people there. The problem you get into then is all these sophisticated, complex derivatives, all this banking structure bullshit, all of that. So, yes, there's a bit of an overhead for the market. Yes, there's a bit of, thermodynamic requirement to maintain the market. There's a bit of thermodynamic requirement and energy requirement to work on the comparative valuations of things. And the community benefits from that, because what does it do? It allows the community to thrive economically with different labor inputs. And so that thermodynamic cost, energetic cost for the market, the currency, the currency utilization and management, et cetera, is more than borne by the stability, health, and growth of the local economy.
So the value of the local commons currency that you're talking about, and
I never mentioned that, by the way. So I've seen it here a couple of times. I've never once mentioned a common currency. What I said, the commons.
Yeah, no, that's what I said, and that's what they said. Yeah. Commons with an S on the end. So now my degree is in economics. It's my background. It's what I do. So, even back when we didn't have computers, 100 to 300 years ago, there was still a credit system. It was just like, the innkeeper, knew that you had this many meals, and it's like, okay, he owes me for 5 meals, right? And so you had a credit system. Now I'm sure it wasn't perfect, and it was not calculable necessarily. There wasn't like a clean calculus on it, right? It was locally managed. It's what you're talking about in a way. The problem I have with that is that it's not calculable in a clean way, or if it is calculable in a clean way, I would be curious to know what that clean way is. Because with a dollar,
it's not, and the dollar doesn't work either, and that's the problem. The dollar doesn't. We've gotten into all this thermodynamic disequilibrium because of the dollar.
Well, what I mean to say is, I know what the problem is, right? I'm curious about the solution. So with the solution, you're saying that there's a thermodynamic overhead to making sure that this system works, right? Is this like a manual system, or is it still something that needs to be developed? Like, is this an idea that needs to be fleshed out that we're not quite sure how it's going to work yet? Or
so not my area. I stopped looking at these things many years ago. I can go connect them fine, but there's several people out there. I would look at Michael Bowens, Bauwens. Michael Bowens' Twitter, and he's got P2P. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he maintains a registry of all of these kinds of philosophic and structural concepts and ideas. It's rather robust. I know Michael, he's a very solid guy, but there's the means and methods by which to work these things out. There's lots of people worked on those solutions. Blockchain does help. Blockchain helps substantially. But again, what people need to understand is that a currency has no real value other than, well, it has no real value whatsoever. What what provides value is that a community knows amongst its, well, first off, communities need to be way more self-sufficient, because otherwise you're manipulated and controlled externally. You need to be as self-sufficient as possible as a community, period. Thermodynamic balancing, right? And energetic balancing. But the real value that then gets reflected in a currency and the price of things is the local market, whereby the value, comparative value between very unlike things is worked out in such a way that the members of the community, that the resentment levels amongst individuals within the community stay within functional bounds. Because if somebody thinks that their work is worth, and this is the problem we're having writ large, this is what the whole woke thing was about. The whole woke thing was the government telling us what the comparative value of things was, rather than the market telling us the comparative value of things. And it turns out gender studies have a very low comparative value to pretty much everything.
Yeah, you're not going to get a job with that.
But, well, hang on a second. But because of the way the incentive structures were designed in dollars, those people are getting paid far better than everybody else. So
right,
it's not the currency that gives you the value. Currency is just used to exchange the value that's come to. What's necessary is a market.
Okay,
and
so
if you allow a national or federal market and don't have local markets where you're working this out, you're still enslaved, you're still controlled, you're still dominated externally.
Well, and this begs the question, how is heavy industry priced? How is something that local, like my local city isn't going to buy a 1,000 mile railroad, right? So there's got to be a much bigger mechanism for this than something.
Okay, but well, hold on a second. Yeah, absolutely, but scales. Everything has to happen at scale. The same pricing mechanism that works out, between some ultra wealthy people and organizations. Let's go ahead and invest in this railroad, which generally happens at the state level, because that's always all subsidized by the state level, by land grants, right? The nation state and the states. Yes, of course there have to, but you can't use the same mechanism you use to value the railroad to value your local economy.
Well, on that we agree. That's the entire problem. So, and I'm not saying we disagree on anything. I'm just asking questions because, this is more or less my field. I'm not, I don't think I'm the top economist in the world, but I speak the language. So it seems to me that you're identifying a problem. There needs to be a solution. That solution must be at a local valuation level, to use very simple language, to not be eloquent about what you're saying, right? to try to make it easy for the audience to hang on to. And then we have what might be a separate system, which might be a national system for things that are much bigger than one community. And one of the problems that comes along with this is that, like, building and Tom Luongo mentioned this just the other day, and this is something that Matt Ehret talks about quite often. The large projects don't have an immediate payoff or anywhere near that. The large products end up kind of having to be like the will of the people to build the entire like US freeway system. That the money wasn't made back on that. Like, first of all, it's very difficult to measure how the money was made back
many times over, just not by the government itself.
But even then, that took decades, though.
It took 50 years. Yeah, it took 50 years.
So how do you how do you get something like that done without issuing some form of credit?
Okay, well, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I've never said that.
I know you didn't say that.
Okay,
and I'm not suggesting that you did.
All right.
But this kind of begs the question, like, shoot, I don't mean to. I'm not trying to like put words in your mouth. Don't get me wrong. Because we're talking about a local system, but I'm wondering about, okay, sure, we can figure out how, like, I make organic food, and then we can have some form of local weights and measures, whether it be automated, semi-automated, voted on, whatever it might be. We don't know what the solution is. And that way we can make sure that there's an agreement on how much things are worth. And then we're not relying on a system that could be corrupted by derivatives and stock markets and things like that. And that's great, we need that badly. In fact, we're not going to survive without that. That's my opinion. But then I would be curious to know how that scales. Like, how do you?
So it's exactly what I said. Okay, it's exactly what I articulated prior. Okay, and it gets back to the thermodynamics and conservation of energy question. There are things, right? So the way in which the human body works, or all multicellular bodies work, is that the cells differentiate themselves into different communities. And there are things that those cells must do for themselves, and there are things that those cells must do for other communities in order to maintain the whole. But evolution, time, has given those, cellular communities an understanding of what's the upper bounds of how much other cellular systems can demand from them. And those cells have made a determination that given our thermodynamic energy production capabilities, we have this much excess that we can expend in these ways, which then further enables the whole, which then furthers enables us. And back to the freeway thing, it's been paid for many times over. And I'm old enough to remember the 70s, when it was the early 70s, when it was still being built out. And there were still communities that were petitioning, did all the analytic work, et cetera, and were petitioning to get off ramp into their community. And they were figuring out how the hell were they going to pay for that? Or, what was the businesses and things that they were going to build around there and sustain in the community and industry, et cetera, that would justify local. In some cases, the local community built the off ramp. In some cases, it was a mix of, federal, et cetera. But these things, on the freeways alone, no, that's not where the money was made. Where the money's been made many times over is the off ramps.
Of course, yeah, off ramps. Well, the whole, I would look at it as
same with the railroad,
system.
By the way. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, the off ramps don't exist without the freeways, but yeah, I would be, again, this wasn't what you were talking about. But I'm curious to know how it scales out. And it seems to me like
it's abstraction layers, right? And again, it's reinvestment. It's, there's an excess in the community. This is how the whole parasitism system works. All communities generate excess. And so the parasitism system gets you thinking about these bigger, larger things that it monetizes through project finance and derivatives and all this other stuff. What's happening? This whole higher level abstraction thing comes in and says, well, we'll do your local pricing for you. We've got a currency for you to use. We've got all these tools, all these things to make it easier and better. Okay, great. But each one of those comes with a cost, a thermodynamic and energetic cost that's being taken out of the community and virtually never put back into the community.
Yeah, it's Gordon Gekko coming in and taking all the pensions.
So there's a certain amount of it that has to happen to keep the host, the whole body alive. Totally get it. But there's a certain amount of thermodynamic and energy level parasitism that is no longer sustainable at all.
Yeah,
and
no,
so
actually,
what is that? And you can't then just get rid of the functions that is associated with the parasitism. The offer, right? I got an offer for you, right? So we have to be able to get back to some of these, some of this local market, some of this local disaggregation of pricing, all these kinds of complex things. And we need to do it locally, and we need to do it small, and we need to, when you start in your own social networks and your own circle, all of us would be a lot better off if we better used our social networks and our friend networks, and not try to do that, but provide something of equal or even slightly greater value than they provide. Yeah, instead of outsourcing to somebody else who takes a cut.
Yeah, and I actually disagree with the person in the chat right now. I think using evolutionary biology for political argumentation is the perfect way to do it.
It's the only way.
Yeah,
we are biological beings. There is nothing humans can conceive of that our biology isn't already doing.
Yeah, well, you're going to get those kind of views from people who are on the religious side of things. Usually, they don't like evolution. That's kind of a knee-jerk thing. And that's fine. Again, I'm not going to say the religions are wrong. I just have a hard time believing it. So that's fine. But I think that if you're going to, you got to use some kind of model. And I think I think humans, we are biological species. We do interact with the environment, and the way that we interact with the environment and with each other is, I think, directly analogous to how other species interact with each other. We just might be a little more complex in certain ways. So I think it's a fine way to do it. And again, I think it's the only way to do it as well. We're certainly in agreement there. But you know, be that as it may, I think people should be. Look, we've taken a lot of your time here. We're an hour and a half in, so I don't mean to keep you any longer. But we have some pretty good questions being asked in the audience, and I think a lot of times what happens is people have an idea of what somebody thinks until they actually talk to them. And then they find out, oh, okay, well, maybe, you know. So I do like to encourage dialogue, even if some of those dialogue come in the form of challenges. I think, in fact, that might be the best time to define somebody's position. But you know, when someone starts to dismiss evolutionary biology as pseudoscience, I find that to be short-sighted. But good luck with that. In the meantime, we've had a wonderful show. And, you know, EM, it's good to have you back. I know last week you couldn't make it. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better. That's a huge thing. You know,
yeah,
I mean, that's a big
we're all
deal.
feeling something. So I appreciate it. Nick, I think you and I talked about this before, but maybe next week what we do is just you collate the best questions you think that move you and your community forward. And next week we just answer questions.
Yeah, that's no, I almost guarantee you Arsotos EM does not want our genetics on the blockchain.
No. It wouldn't matter anyways. Because genetics actually aren't anywhere near as important as we thought they were. That was the thing that is just proven with COVID and the mRNA vaccines and all of that's turning out. We're getting a fraction of the kill-off rate that they wanted to because our bodies are adapting. Why? Because they're not driven genetically. They're driven bioelectrically, and genes can get turned on and off at will. Right?
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, and that's encouraging, right? Because I remember hearing some things from all kinds of different sources. This was definitely a time of mis and disinformation. That was the fog of war when COVID first hit. It was crazy. And with the shots, and then you're hearing, you know, it might be bad, it might be good, whatever. I never trusted them. My whole family, besides myself, took them, except for my mom and my brother. So I guess the three of us passed the IQ test. But I would put it this way, as far as that, like the idea of our bodies, like kind of being able to handle that, it's encouraging. If they're spraying us with stuff, if they're putting it in our food, everything, and they were not able to get the kill off rate that they were hoping for, it means that their bioweapons are not as powerful as they thought, and that our bodies are far more resilient than they thought.
It's why they're transitioning so hard to World War III and nuclear war. That is the biggest tell.
That's they want to blow us up because they can't kill us with the
correct, because our bodies are extraordinary not machines, but our cells. People really do need to go study cells. There's great Dennis Noble, professor emeritus now out of Oxford, I think Oxford or Cambridge. I think it's Oxford. He did a great book. I think I gave you a copy of it when you were here last.
Is it
Understanding Living Systems?
It's sitting right behind me, actually.
Yeah, so everybody should go read it. It's a small little book, but it'll fundamentally change your ideas of how biology, how cells work. And once you realize that, you're like, wow.
Yeah, no, I need to get into it. It's you know what I have going on, EM. So it's I got to fit it in there somewhere.
Right.
So I'm this close to finishing Dune Chapter House. So as soon as I get ready, I'm right there at the end after the major battle, but then they're not sure why there's no casualties that are not completely dead and not bleeding. I'm like right there. So anyway, EM, thank you so much. Always an absolute pleasure. What a great show. All right, everybody. Don't forget to get into the description. EM's work is in there, your Substack. In fact, EM, for those who don't know how to get into descriptions, can you spell out like a way to find you?
EM Burlingame at Twitter, or at emburlingame.substack.com, or emburlingame.com, which is where folks can get the books and some merch. And we'll be adding more stuff to there as we go along here and build out the universe, the Shouldering Giants universe. Very much to this conversation, I'm getting ready to write chapter 40. which people can get for free on Substack, the novel. But I'm quite literally sitting down, so this is a timely conversation this weekend, to write chapter 40, which is about a modern manorial state. And how does it manage these things, these complex things? And then how does that spill over from that manorial estate to local communities?
I think a healthy conversation for us to have in the future for another show. And by the way, before we get off here, I'm gonna table that thought that I was just about to say. Anybody who has questions for EM, come on over to the Discord. Hit us up in the Discord. That's where you can find us, right? And ask the questions. Just send me a DM. Say, hey, this is a question for EM. That's a question for EM. And what we can also do is, if there's enough time after those questions are asked, we can, just field the ones that are in the chat, and we can put aside as much time EM as you have to give on that one.
Yeah, well, we're still building all that out, but soon it'll be up there, and folks can come and join the community.
Oh, forgive me. I meant the Rogue Discord.
Oh, so, forgive me. Okay.
Yeah. So for those of you who have questions for EM, maybe for next week's show, come to the Rogue Discord, DM me the questions, and I will, collate those, and then we can have a show next week. That's what I'm talking about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I got to get going next.
See you, EM. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.